So is Ori and the Will of the Wisps as good as Hollow Knight? Simply put, no.
Here's your review.
Alright, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I need to find a better name for because that's a mouthful, was one of my most anticipated games of 2020. I loved Ori and the Blind Forest, labeling it a 10 out of 10 masterpiece back then, but when it comes to Metroidvanias today, I have to say, we've been spoiled lately, and while Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I hate saying that, was a fantastic addition to the series and a really fun playthrough, it felt just good rather than something that stands out as incredible. Now, I'll be focusing more on the gameplay elements of the game today, so let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. The music is as spectacular as ever. You know when it's like 1 in the morning and your mouth is like, a nice greasy pizza would be really good on this tongue right now, and you're like, damn right it would, instant purchase. If ears could have similar cravings, it would be for Ori music. You could say Ori's soundtrack is the equivalent of a pizza craving for your mouth, or a taco, or whatever it is you crave. Maybe it's salty broccoli with chocolate sauce. I don't know what you people eat, but take that mouth craving and just put it in your ear. And I feel composers never get enough credit in gaming, so let me introduce you to this beautiful person who made these wonderful tunes. Now, their name is Gareth Coker. Who knows if I pronounced that right? You can thank them on Twitter. Here's their handle. You make sure you tell them, hey, Jay sent you, all right? Next obvious feature are the graphics. Look, we all get it. Ori is a beautiful masterpiece. The artwork is majestic. I wish my partner could look as good as Ori. We've all heard this by now. Between looking at this art style while your ears are leaking pure joy from the soundtrack, you'll never be able to look at yourself in the mirror again without spitting in your own face at how ugly you are in comparison. I'd love to show you the wonderful artists behind this creation, but the best I can do is find their names, so here's a picture instead. And Jeremy, Daniel, thank you for creating something so damn beautiful. All right, the next obvious thing to discuss are the tech issues. Now, if you've peeked at any other reviews, you'll most likely find someone lamenting over all the frames they've lost in their precious seconds. It's true, Ori doesn't run smoothly about like 1% of the time based on my playthrough on a decent mid-range PC. Now, the day one patch did help, so it probably won't even be an issue for you anymore if you're playing it after watching this video. This was hardly a negative impact on my playthrough though, just a few hiccups. I did pick up some audio glitches though occasionally, which was like having someone interrupt a beautiful symphony with a quick explosive shit, and that was really unappreciated. Now lastly, the story is something, honestly, I was expecting a little bit more of. Half the time, I wasn't even sure what was going on. At first, you're playing with your friends, the world is beautiful, everyone is happy, then doom happens, and you need to do stuff until a wise magical toad, maybe it's a frog, I don't really know my amphibians. Anyways, they tell you to collect all the wisps to save a tree. Now wait, wasn't that the plot of the first game? Save the tree, run from the bird. It's been a while since I played the first one, but everything felt so familiar. They even brought an evil bird back in this game just for the sake of confusing me. Like, is this the same bird as the first game? A new bird? Why are birds so angry in this forest? Anyways, I honestly didn't care for the story. It only made me cry like once. Oh, that ending though. Okay, now for the good stuff. Let's talk about gameplay elements. Let's start by going over all the Hollow Knight ideas they borrowed, which, hey, I applaud Moon Studios for doing. I mean, that's a good model to borrow ideas from. First, we have the introduction of charms. Spirit shards. These are collectibles either purchased or found in the world, which give Ori new abilities like pulling orbs to Ori or letting him stick to walls and stuff. It's a great way to customize your Ori for your playstyle and gives you more goodies to hunt down in the world. Now, unlike Hollow Knight, you can upgrade your shards, making them more powerful, which is a nice little touch. At first, you'll only be able to equip like 3 shards, but you can then find several shard slot upgrades, which will let you equip even more as you progress. All of this, fantastic addition. And now speaking of shards, it's worth pointing out that the entire combat system for Ori has been rebuilt. Gone is your homing missile base attack, replaced instead with a sword, a bow, fire attack, and way more. Ori isn't messing around anymore. He is straight up tired of this shit. The great aspect here is you can map 3 abilities from your ability wheel on the fly to customize your playstyle as needed. Personally, I had the sword and the bow perma-equipped with my 3rd button used for a rotating ability slot. Oh, and there's one ability that you can use to heal yourself by using your energy by holding down the button. Seems familiar. The next new idea that made me go, oh, this is familiar, is when you enter a new area, you'll eventually encounter Lupo, an avid cartographer who sells maps. A map-obsessed NPC who sells you maps. Now, where have we seen that before? I smell a corner for knockoff. but it's cool because it's a good addition. Honestly, that's about as much inspiration from Hollow Knight, Ori and the Will of the Wisps borrowed. But there is one more thing I really wish they would have added, which is Hollow Knight's camera pan controls. Now in Hollow Knight, you can use the right joystick to move the camera around in any direction to get a sense of what's around you and assess the risk of jumping off a ledge or going off into who knows where. Now with Ori, you can only do this in the up or down direction by holding the left joystick, which is, the same joystick used to control Ori. It's not as good, and I found myself several times wishing I could see more ahead of where I was going so I didn't end up landing or running into spikes. This is one of my major criticisms that make this game lose a point in my view. Now on to some other new ideas that were added to the series, which I absolutely loved. The inclusion of quests, while it felt a bit shallow, was a welcome addition. There are a lot more NPCs in this game, including one who really seems to love Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Talking to some of them will result in a quest where they'll either straight up ask you to do something or get something, or they'll share a rumor that they heard about something which will result in you having to investigate that spot on the map. Love that idea. There is one cool trade quest as well reminiscent of the Zelda trade quest, which results in a very useful item that is a must for completionists. There are also two quests which I really love that has you collecting ore seeds to rebuild the village and the garden. Collecting things to restore a base is totally my peanut butter jam, and I wish more games did this. Finally, they've added these speed trials for you competitive nuts out there where you have to race a ghost through different areas of the game. These I don't like so much because it makes my butt clench with anxiety, and I don't like that. But I know some of you will love this feature. If you're a completionist, you need to complete them all, which is, it's a mild annoyance, but luckily they're not too difficult. Oh, and speaking of anxiety-driven butthole puckers, you might remember those iconic chase sequences from the first game, which were both fun and highly stressful. You might be wondering, oh, Senpai Heijay, do the butthole pucker chase sequences return? Oh, yes they do. They're back, and they're more intense than ever. Without spoiling anything, let me just say, when you get a massive worm chasing you all over the place, you're going to be grunting and cursing harder than you thought possible. But you can't really complain, as these chase sequences are supported by some of the most epic tracks in the whole game, and when you're done, you'll just jump off your couch like a champion waiting to be praised, even if you live alone. At least I know I did that, and no regrets, no shame. There's no shame in that. Now to note, in the first game, these chase sequences served as boss fights, and I say boss fights. While they serve the same purpose in this game, they've also added in actual boss fights with full-on boss patterns and even a health bar. These things can be quite difficult to take down, but also feel like proper boss fight that require the application of all the skills you've learned to that point. They're all quite fun, except this one spider fight, which I absolutely hated that one. It was just a mess. Oh, and I just remembered, spiders. Yeah, Moon Studios must have looked at Hollow Knight's freakishly creepy deep nest and were like, can we top that? Well, they didn't, but they tried. If you're afraid of spiders or the dark, maybe find someone to help you through this one part because it's pretty damn terrifying and the darkness literally kills you. You stay in the dark too long and all you hear are these little whispers closing in on you and then you die. You know what? That shit's traumatic. That should be optional. And lastly, one of the greatest highlights of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, getting better at saying that, are the controls. Jumping and bouncing around with Ori feels like some of the smoothest gameplay ever created. Just running around this game is satisfying gameplay, and between your acrobatics and attacks, you can continuously chain everything to never have to stop moving. You jump, you bounce, you down slash on an enemy, and then you keep bouncing and pulling yourself everywhere. It's a very fluid experience and one I highly recommend. Now, as one who strives for 100% completion and rarely succeeds, Ori and the Will of the Wisps hits a nice sweet spot. There are tons of things to collect in the game while you're traversing a vast world. I love that the game provides the player with everything they need to find those collectibles, meaning you should never need a guide or walkthrough to find everything. And that is how games should be designed in the present day and going forward from here. We shouldn't have to be dependent on the internet to finish everything. To achieve 100% completion, it took me roughly 10 hours, and I consider myself someone who plays through games rather quickly, so take that as you will. For story completion, you're probably looking around close to 8 hours. Moon Studios was also generous enough to allow players to pull up their maps and teleport to key places at any time, which is a feature I unfortunately didn't realize was available to me until about 8 hours into the game. Yeah. Now, I've seen some complaints out there regarding the difficulty curve in the game. Myself, I played on normal difficulty, and while I love this genre, I found it quite challenging. The right level of challenge, mind you. For someone who's more of a casual player or isn't much into platformers, this game could be a huge turnoff, as it definitely feels harder than the first game. If you wanted more of a challenge, however, as a veteran player, this game was designed with you in mind. In the end, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I got it. I can just Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Anyway, it can be described as a very fun game, which is defined more so by its artistic direction and fluid gameplay more than anything else. It's a must-play game for any fans of Metroidvanias, but after waiting 5 years for this sequel, it feels like it could have been so much more. Or perhaps my expectations are just too high. I don't know. Either way, I look forward to seeing what Moon Studios does next and supporting them on their next project. If you're a Hollow Knight fan like me though, don't expect the same kind of sense of exploration or the same level of combat precision, but take it as a fun game to keep your attention while we await Silksong. That's what I think of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Let me know if you've tried it and what you think. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next Heiji Reviews, and until then, keep it classy.